Hello, g'day, buenos dias, bonjour, konnichiwa. My name's Glenn, and here is my review of Rugby's calendar looking at club rugby in Europe and North America. Now, taking a quick look at the existing calendar, 2019 was a complicated mix of international and domestic tournaments, overlapping and blended into each other. Even ignoring the World Cup interruption, the European Leagues, European Cup pool stages, Six Nations, the European Championships, as well as under-20 championships all running over each other, as well as Major League clashing with America's Rugby Championship and the Asia Rugby Championship and Pacific Nations with Japan's top league. Much of this is inevitable. There are only so many weeks a year, though with a little rejigging of timings, there are spaces we can free up to make them all run more smoothly for players and administrators and more sensibly for broadcasters and the fans. First of all, taking the top of the European Club game, rescheduling the European Cup and Continental Shield into the season openers, running as concise tournaments distinct from the week-in, week-out league games. In early season, good weather and pitch conditions with players fit and fresh from the summer break and pre-season, and getting the fans excited and engaged right at the front end of the season. Keeping the same two-tier structure as now, but with a new 7-game, 8-week format, only the top 15 teams would qualify for the Champions Cup, ensuring the very best quality at the top. The Challenge Cup retains the remaining 9 from top 14, 7 each from the Premiership and Pro 14, and the 2 Continental Shield qualifiers. Split into pools of 5 teams, all play 2 home and 2 away with a bye, and the top 8 qualify for each tier's quarter, semi and final. So we keep the same overall format of pools and knockouts, but make Champions Cup entry tougher and more competitive, while also raising quality in the Challenge Cup tier. The Continental Shield is a qualifier for other countries' top clubs, though the draw for entry and qualification is kind of random and really needs more clarity. Setting up new East and West conferences for the top teams from the next tier of European club leagues, playing 2 home and 2 away, and then cross-conference eliminators to determine the best 2 sides to challenge the existing qualifiers in the Challenge Cup for entry the following season, means teams get more exposure and more competition to compete more effectively in the Challenge Cup. So in this way we start the season with a bang, with the best quality the Northern Hemisphere club game has got, a shorter format for the European Cup but still retaining the equal home and away games, and a fairer route to qualification for the next tier of club teams. Now, the Pro 14 is a subject of much speculation, while South Africa Rugby Union and Pro 14's owners announced they're looking at options, though other than an unholy decision to scratch the Free State Cheetahs in favour of 4 other teams, to date nothing is confirmed. Currently, 2 pools of 7 play 21 games, with all local rivals playing home and away. European teams make a 1 or 2 week tour to South Africa, mostly sending development squads, happy to ship 30 to 50 points away, knowing that they can make up points on the table later. South African teams, though, make up to 4 tours of between 1 to 4 weeks, which is a heck of a long time away from home, and also have a clash with the Currie Cup in September-October, as well as a 6-week break in December-January, playing only once, while all other teams are playing continuously. So, what would change with 16 teams? Well, a new format might be 2 pools of 8, with countries' teams split between the 2, but this means not all local rivals can play home and away against each other. 4 pools of 4 is a better way. Here, looking at Leinster as an example, they play 3 home and 3 away in their pool, and 12 home or away in the other pools, plus 3 extra games against the other Irish sides to make up the home and away derbies. And Scottish and Italian teams would play each other 4 times in total as they do now. So the schedule can work, playing 21 games in a regular season. Also, new South African teams could bring new audience, especially from the South African diaspora in the UK. But those 250,000 South Africans live mostly in London and South East England, and there are no English teams to play against. So, unless the South African teams choose to play some home games in London, the other Welsh, Scottish, Irish home attendances aren't going to benefit much. I suspect relatively few people will travel all the way to Belfast, Glasgow or Swansea. And even fewer people will travel all the way to South Africa for regular season away games there, so the new audience growth might be limited. However, the team's travel time and travel costs will definitely grow. South African teams would play 7 to 8 games in UK, Ireland and Italy, rather than the 5 they play outside South Africa in the Super Rugby competition. Travel has been a major issue for South Africa teams in Super Rugby, and a cost saving of 90 million rand or £5 million has been announced as a result of switching to a Northern Hemisphere competition, though I just don't see how, given the cost of travel, insurance and hotels is higher in UK and Italy than in Australia, New Zealand and Argentina. In addition, the travel costs for European-based sides will also go up, with 2 to 3 away games in South Africa instead of the 1 to 2 they play now. Upsides, though, are naturally the time zone difference is more favourable for South African teams, some small growth in home attendances for Wales, Scotland or Ireland, hosting a South Africa home game in London, and new investment for sponsors or broadcast rights, though this is an unknown for now, as CVC already put in 140 million to Pro 14, and it depends on what value they see in another investment so soon. Issues and risks, though, the season clash in South Africa I mentioned already, not only with Currie Cup but also with the Rugby Championship, additional travel and higher costs for all teams, the player influx from South Africa with greater exposure of South African teams, players and agents in European leagues, then I suspect the chances for player migration will increase, particularly looking at the salary differences. Now, there's a slide in the Super Rugby's presentation in the Southern Hemisphere club game highlighting the differences between the salaries in North and South, and this is definitely going to drive a higher risk of player migration. So, as a result, as a review of Pro 14, then, there is a schedule imbalance today that needs some resolution. The positives of moving to a Pro 16, though, certainly look questionable, and in the circumstances where we are with COVID running high, then I guess the risks seem high too, and I would question whether the outcomes are going to work out quite how the owners expect. Now, looking at France, UK and Ireland's domestic rugby overall, the Pro 14's best step forward would be to either return to 12 original teams and work with Scottish, Welsh and Italian unions to improve their team's overall competitiveness and marketability in order to grow revenue, or to consider replacing the 2 South African sides from growing markets in continental Europe, not with club teams, though rather composite or franchise teams supported by the national union, in say Spain, Portugal or Germany, with the support of World Rugby, along the lines of Argentina setting up the Jaguares at their high performance centre for Super Rugby with a top coach and pulling their best players into one side, playing as a de facto national team in a club comp. Spain is ranked 18 in the world, Portugal 21, and there would be plenty of other national players from Georgia, Italy, Romania playing in the top 14 or Pro D2 who would jump at the chance to play in the Pro 14. This is far more viable than expanding in the Southern Hemisphere. The French top 14 and English Premiership work okay as they are. Adding Saracens and Ealing to the Prem is feasible, but to be honest, the bottom sides in the top 14 are normally off the pace, and it's probably better to stick with 12, though I'm not going to enter a debate about the LNR. A Celtic and Continental only Pro 14 could stick with its 21-game format as now, or 12 teams enable a 22-game double round robin, which is fair and cost efficient for all. Either of these allow some breaks for Six Nations matches, and the big change would be dropping the semi-final and final and replacing them and the Premiership Cup with a new FA Cup style British and Irish Cup involving 82 teams from all countries over 8 rounds of knockouts. Now, this starts with 40 teams, including 14 of the top 16 National League 1 teams, so excluding the 2 promoted from National League 2 North and South. In fact, there are 3 today, but it makes more sense to be 2 up and down each season. The top 9 from the All-Ireland Division 1A, so excluding the 1 newly promoted team. The top 11 from the 12-team Welsh Premiership, again adjusting the promotion relegation places to 1 only, and taking all 6 of the Scottish Super 6 teams, where there's no promotion and relegation anyway. 20 teams would progress to round 2, where the 12 Championship sides and 8 Pro 14A sides from Ireland and Wales that play in the Celtic Cup today would join to make 40 once more. 20 would qualify for round 3 and 10 into round 4, to which the 12 Premiership sides and 10 British and Irish sides from the Pro 14 or Pro 12 would be added. From these 32, the last 16, then quarterfinal, semi-final and season-ending finale would decide the winner in the final weekend of the domestic season. So round 1 might feature Cork Con versus Watsonians, or Pontypridd hosting Roslyn Park, a fantastic chance for players to challenge themselves like never before. Round 3 or 4 might feature the Giant Killers of Llanelli up against Ulster, or even ground share partners, the Scarlets. In the calendar then, the Six Nations window moving 1 month later doesn't affect the club schedule, which would begin in late August with the European Cup, followed immediately by the domestic league seasons running until late May, and interrupted only by the British and Irish Cup starting the weekend between Christmas and New Year, and then on the final weekend of each month until the last Saturday of May, followed by the World Club Championship. So we have simple, effective league formats, an inclusive multi-tier knockout cup, and clarity between the different tournaments during the season. Now, for the World Club Championship, this would be staged first of all in a pool section with 2 rounds, picking up the 8 European Cup and Super Rugby semi-finalists and seeded 1 to 4 in each pool. First 2 weekends would be seeds 1 and 2, each playing seeds 3 and 4. So week 1 would be European Cup 1 and 2 playing Super Rugby 3 and 4, and European Cup 3 and 4 playing Super Rugby 1 and 2. Week 2 would be European Cup 1 and 2 playing 4 and 3 from Super Rugby, and European Cup 3 and 4 playing 2 and 1 from Super Rugby. Following this then into the knockouts, the top 4 on the points table would qualify, and points would be earned in the usual way: 4 for a win, 2 for a draw, and a bonus each for 4 tries or losing within 7. From that table, number 1 would play number 3, and number 2 would play number 4 in the semi-final. Losers would go into a 3rd place playoff for bronze, and winners into the final. And teams with the most table points get home games, if they're in the same hemisphere, obviously. So we would get 12 matches over 4 weeks of the Brumbies and the Crusaders and the Bulls and the Hurricanes playing against Leinster and Exeter Chiefs and Racing 92 and Toulouse. What's not to like? So how does it all fit together? Well, taking the 44-week playing season and 8 weeks break, the international windows would start in spring with the Six Nations and European Championships and America's Rugby Championship. And the test tours would switch around into Europe and North America in June and out to Southern Hemisphere or Asia in the middle of the season. European Cup would kick off the season in late August, running for 8 weeks until the top 2 teams meet in the final in the middle of October, 2 weeks before the away test tours, so ideal for team selection and preparation. The domestic club season would begin straight after the European Cup, running for 28 weeks until the end of May, for the top 14 to fit a double round robin and semis and a final, and the Premiership and Pro 12 teams to fit in the British and Irish Cup games into their season, culminating in the final at the end of May, not clashing with the FA Cup final. Then the World Club Championship would run every second year in June or November, pulling in the top 4 sides from Europe and the top 4 from the Southern Hemisphere. Now, there are some Saturdays for only top 14 or British and Irish Cup and 2 extra breaks during the Six Nations, which in the years the World Club Championship runs in November would be used to reschedule those 3 clashes for domestic season games. So there it is, a few schedule changes, a couple of additional tournaments, and we have a workable calendar for players and for fans and for broadcasters to help stabilise and grow the game. Now, quickly to finish off with North America. In the USA and Canada, the 13-team Major League is split into 2 conferences and 18 regular season games. Now, I would propose to put in 3 conferences of West with 4 teams, South with 5, and East with the remaining 4. This is a more favourable scenario than the existing 6-7 split, with shorter travel and easier time differences for teams and fans. The schedule would be 3 home and 3 away in conference for East and West teams, with 9 cross-conference home or away, and an extra return match against the other 4-team conference. And for the South, 4 home and away in conference, with 8 home and away, home or away versus the other conferences for a 16-game regular season. That is easier on all teams and fans and allows a break during the American Six Nations for the USA-Canada match. There is just one Canadian franchise in Major League Rugby, though for Canadian provincial championships, the BC Premier League, the Ontario Marshall 1 and 2, and Quebec, Nova Scotia all run separately. And with 4 to 8 hours travel between them, there is little sense to a nationwide tournament, and that is, I suspect, why the Canadian Rugby Championship has been cancelled. These leagues best run separately, as does the US National Club Championship, though a slightly earlier start would enable the clubs to finish early in the Major League season before the American Rugby Championships later start in March. Then the USA and Canada have the new second tier of the Rugby Championship, the Rugby Challenge, to compete in the second half of the year. So, smaller conferences for the Major League means less travel for teams and fans, more local rivalries for spectators to reach, and in the calendar, amateur rugby leads into professional, building up a player pathway into international games. Now, looking at the calendar for North America, the same 44-week and 8-week break. As mentioned before, the test windows would fall in springtime for the America's Rugby Championship and in the autumn for the Rugby Challenge. We would switch June and November, so tours into North America in June and tours away from North America in November. For the international club season, Major League would run for the 20 weeks from middle January until end of May, with a break in the middle for whenever the USA-Canada match falls in the American Six Nations. Domestically, clubs would start slightly earlier in August and run with a break in December, run up until the middle of February before the American Six Nations begins. So there we have it, a workable calendar for North America and for Europe. I hope you've enjoyed that little walkthrough, and I invite you to watch the other videos with details on Southern Hemisphere Rugby, with a fix for Super Rugby, Japan's top league, South American Rugby, the Currie Cup, and other regional test championships as well. Please share your feedback, and thanks for watching. Finally, please know these are all my own ideas and not connected to any official rugby organisation. Thank you very much.